I believe that there are people at Turning Point who are engaged in covering up what happened on that day.
And I think that what the public doesn't understand, and I count myself among the public, is why it seems as though Turning Point USA executives, and I'll say seems, are not even remotely interested in challenging that official narrative. Who are they protecting exactly?
I said, I'm happy to keep my mouth shut, and I want to feel good walking out of here that there is something there. There is some sort of a smoking gun, and I will tell viewers just to be patient. And so they did call one of the lawyers working on this case, and it was not convincing at all. He said, in effect, all we have is what the public has seen.
Tyler Robinson has never confessed. They acknowledge that. He has never confessed to this crime, and he still is pleading innocence on the shooting. In fact, I was told that he was, quote unquote, bewildered.
Do you believe, as a consequence of your 4.5 hours with Erika, do you believe that it is now most likely that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk?
Absolutely not. I haven't seen one piece of compelling evidence that Tyler Robinson scaled the rooftops like Spider-Man on a college campus that he didn't go to and fired one shot, a magic bullet shot, and killed Charlie Kirk. I have not seen one piece of compelling evidence. In fact, I've seen more compelling evidence.
Is that the feds are lying to us. That is obvious. It is abundant. If you're able to think thoughts, you recognize that something is very wrong with the story that has been presented to the public.
A single moment can unsettle public confidence and leave behind questions that resist easy answers. Questions not only about what happened, but about how truth is examined when emotions run high. Before going further, consider subscribing to stay connected to careful, fact-based reporting on stories that shape public trust. In the months following the death of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk during an event at Utah Valley University in September 2025, public attention has extended beyond the legal case itself to the broader conversation surrounding it. While authorities moved forward with an arrest and formal charges, the public response revealed deeper tensions about how information is interpreted, shared, and challenged, particularly when influential voices weigh in before all facts are fully tested in court. Candace Owens, a well-known political commentator with a substantial national audience, has become a notable voice in the public discussion surrounding this case by openly expressing skepticism about how certain aspects have been presented so far. Her comments have attracted attention not because they introduce new facts or evidence, but because they challenge the completeness of the early public narrative. According to reporting from established news organizations, Owens has questioned whether the individual currently charged, Tyler Robinson, should be viewed as the sole focus of responsibility based solely on information available at this stage. She has emphasized what she describes as unanswered questions and gaps in the publicly accessible record, arguing that the story, as understood by the general public, may still be incomplete. Importantly, Owens' remarks have not disputed the reality of an arrest or the legitimacy of the legal process now underway. She has not claimed inside knowledge of the investigation, nor has she suggested that official proceedings should be disregarded. Instead, her commentary reflects her personal interpretation of limited and early information, delivered through the lens of a media environment where developments unfold rapidly and often without full context. Her approach highlights a familiar tension in high-profile cases, the gap between what investigators know and what the public is able to see. Owens has framed her position as one rooted in inquiry rather than conclusion. In her public statements, she has suggested that early narratives can become fixed in public consciousness before all relevant facts are examined in a courtroom. This concern speaks to a broader pattern in contemporary media culture, where initial reports and early impressions can carry disproportionate influence. Once a storyline takes hold, it can be difficult to revise, even as new information emerges. Owens' skepticism, in this sense, reflects an effort to resist premature certainty rather than to assert an alternative account of events. Much of her commentary has centered on materials already circulating publicly. These include video clips, social media posts, and secondhand descriptions that have appeared in news coverage or online discussions. Owens has argued that such materials deserve closer scrutiny, not because they definitively point in a different direction, but because they represent fragments of a larger picture that has yet to be fully revealed. By focusing on these elements, she has positioned herself as someone urging audiences to pause and consider whether the available information is sufficient to support firm conclusions. At the same time, this reliance on publicly circulating fragments has drawn criticism. Observers point out that video clips and secondhand accounts, by their nature, provide only partial insight. They are often removed from broader context, edited for brevity, or interpreted through subjective lenses. Investigators and courts, by contrast, have access to a far wider range of information, including evidence that is not made public during the early stages of a case. Critics argue that interpretations based solely on public fragments risk overstating their significance and underestimating what remains unseen. This critique does not necessarily accuse Owens of bad faith. Rather, it highlights the inherent limitations of commentary that unfolds alongside an active investigation. When information is incomplete, even well-intentioned questions can take on added weight. In the absence of clear answers, audiences may fill gaps with assumptions, sometimes attributing more meaning to ambiguous details than they can reasonably support. This dynamic is especially pronounced when commentary comes from figures with large platforms, where remarks can quickly reach millions of people. The situation has placed Owens at odds with other voices within conservative media who have urged greater restraint. Some commentators have emphasized the importance of relying on verified updates from law enforcement and the courts, cautioning against drawing inferences from early or incomplete information. They argue that while questioning is legitimate, it should be balanced with an awareness of the legal process and the reasons investigators may withhold details. This divergence of approaches illustrates a broader debate within media circles about how to responsibly engage with unfolding cases. At the heart of this disagreement lies a fundamental challenge in modern public discourse, distinguishing between questioning as a method of understanding and speculation that can unintentionally amplify confusion. Questioning, when grounded in humility and clarity about its limits, can encourage critical thinking and prevent uncritical acceptance of initial narratives. Speculation, however, can blur the line between what is known and what is merely suspected, particularly when it is repeated or amplified without sufficient context. In high-profile cases, this distinction becomes especially significant. Events involving serious harm or loss tend to generate intense public interest and emotional response. People naturally seek explanations, and media platforms are often eager to meet that demand. In such environments, commentary that raises doubts or highlights gaps can resonate strongly, even if it does not offer alternative explanations. The risk is not that questions are asked, but that they may be interpreted as suggestions of hidden truths rather than acknowledgments of uncertainty. Owens' role in this conversation reflects both the power and the complexity of modern media influence. As a commentator with a large following, her words carry weight regardless of disclaimers about uncertainty. Supporters may view her skepticism as a necessary counterbalance to what they perceive as rushed conclusions. Critics may worry that her framing contributes to doubt without offering clarity, potentially complicating public understanding of an already sensitive situation. Both perspectives underscore how influential voices shape not just opinions, but the tone of discourse itself. It is also important to note that Owens has repeatedly framed her remarks as provisional. She has acknowledged that courts, not commentators, are the proper venues for determining responsibility. Her emphasis on unanswered questions does not claim to resolve them, but to keep them visible until more information becomes available. This stance aligns with a broader skepticism toward early narratives, particularly in cases where details emerge gradually and sometimes shift over time. Yet, even provisional commentary can have lasting effects. In the digital age, statements are shared, clipped, and recirculated, often detached from their original context. Nuanced positions can be reduced to simplified takeaways, and expressions of uncertainty can be perceived as assertions. This reality places an added burden on public figures to communicate carefully, anticipating how their words may be interpreted beyond their immediate audience. The disagreement surrounding Owens' commentary also reflects differing philosophies about the role of media during ongoing legal proceedings. One view holds that vigorous public questioning keeps institutions accountable and prevents complacency. Another emphasizes that premature analysis can undermine trust in due process and create confusion that is difficult to undo. Both views have merit, and navigating between them requires careful judgment. Ultimately, the situation illustrates how modern cases unfold not only in courtrooms, but in parallel conversations across media platforms. These conversations are shaped by personalities, incentives, and audience expectations. Skepticism, restraint, curiosity, and caution all coexist, sometimes uneasily, within the same information ecosystem. Owens' comments represent one strand of this broader tapestry, highlighting the challenges of speaking amid uncertainty without inadvertently shaping conclusions. As the legal process continues, the limitations of early commentary will likely become clearer. Evidence will be examined under established standards, and findings will emerge through formal proceedings rather than public debate. Until then, public understanding will continue to be shaped by how commentators frame what is known and unknown. Owens' skepticism, whether viewed as constructive or problematic, serves as a case study in the influence of commentary during unresolved moments. In this context, responsible engagement requires attentiveness from both speakers and audiences. Recognizing the difference between inquiry and inference helps maintain perspective. Acknowledging the boundaries of available information can temper expectations and reduce the risk of misunderstanding. High-profile voices, in particular, play a role in modeling how to navigate uncertainty without converting it into narrative. The broader lesson is not about silencing questions or privileging one perspective over another. Rather, it is about understanding how questions function in public discourse, especially when stakes are high and information is limited. Candace Owens' commentary has brought this tension into sharp focus, illustrating the delicate balance between skepticism and restraint that defines responsible discussion in an age of rapid, continuous communication. The conversation intensified following reports of a private meeting between Owens, Erika Kirk, and leaders from Turning Point USA. While details of that discussion remain private, subsequent reporting indicated that Owens did not substantially alter her public stance afterward. This outcome further fueled debate, not about legal guilt or innocence, which remains the court's responsibility, but about how public figures engage with unresolved cases and the weight their commentary carries. It is important to emphasize what is currently verified. Law enforcement has arrested and charged Tyler Robinson, and the case is proceeding through the judicial system. Courts, not commentators, online audiences, or media personalities, will ultimately evaluate evidence, testimony, and legal arguments. No official findings beyond those filings have been released, and no alternative explanations have been established through formal proceedings. Against this backdrop, the response of Erika Kirk has stood out for its restraint. Rather than engaging in speculation or public debate about interpretations of evidence, she has consistently emphasized patience, respect for the legal process, and reliance on confirmed information. Her approach has served as a reminder of the human cost behind public discussion and the importance of allowing institutions designed to determine facts to do their work. The contrast between Candace Owens' public skepticism and Erika Kirk's measured response has become one of the defining features of how this case is being discussed. It is not simply a disagreement between two voices. It represents two distinct approaches to uncertainty in the public sphere. One approach emphasizes immediacy, questioning narratives as they form and challenging assumptions in real time. The other emphasizes deliberation, restraint, and respect for formal processes that are still unfolding. Neither approach, on its own, can provide definitive answers to unresolved questions. Yet together, they illuminate a broader tension that increasingly defines modern media environments, the pull between speed and caution, between commentary and confirmation. Owens' skepticism reflects a style of engagement that resonates strongly in an era of constant information flow. Audiences today are accustomed to rapid analysis, instant reactions, and real-time commentary. When events unfold in the public eye, especially those involving loss or legal uncertainty, many people instinctively look for explanations as quickly as possible. Skeptical commentary can serve a purpose in this environment. It can challenge complacency, highlight inconsistencies, and prevent official narratives from going unexamined. In democratic societies, questioning authority and scrutinizing information are essential practices. Without them, important issues might remain hidden or unchallenged. At the same time, skepticism carries its own risks when it outpaces verification. When questions are posed without clear distinctions between fact, inference, and speculation, audiences may struggle to separate what is known from what is merely suspected. In high-profile cases, this can create an atmosphere where uncertainty itself becomes amplified. Questions intended to probe can be interpreted as conclusions, and provisional thoughts can harden into fixed beliefs. This is not necessarily the intent behind skeptical commentary, but it is often an unintended consequence in fast-moving media spaces. Erika Kirk's response offers a different model. Rather than engaging in rapid counter-narratives or public speculation, her approach has emphasized patience and process. She has consistently focused on what can be responsibly said at a given moment, acknowledging uncertainty without attempting to fill it prematurely. This posture does not eliminate unanswered questions, nor does it satisfy the immediate desire for clarity. Instead, it reflects an understanding that some answers can only emerge through structured inquiry, particularly within legal settings where evidence is evaluated under established standards. This measured approach can be challenging in a media environment that rewards speed and certainty. Deliberation is often perceived as silence, and restraint can be mistaken for avoidance. Yet there is a meaningful distinction between withholding comment out of caution and withholding information out of concealment. In Erika Kirk's case, her public statements have consistently emphasized respect for ongoing proceedings and for the individuals affected by them. Her response suggests an awareness that public discourse, once set in motion, can shape perceptions long before facts are fully established. The coexistence of these two approaches, skepticism and deliberation, does not mean one is inherently right and the other wrong. Rather, it highlights the complexity of navigating uncertainty in public life. Modern media platforms compress timelines, collapsing the space between events and interpretation. As a result, commentary often unfolds alongside investigations, rather than after them. This overlap creates friction. The desire to understand collides with the reality that understanding takes time. This moment also underscores a broader responsibility shared not only by public figures, but by audiences as well. In an era where commentary travels faster than verification, the way information is framed becomes as important as the information itself. Words carry weight, especially when they reach large audiences quickly. A question posed to provoke thought can be received as an assertion. A theory shared tentatively can be repeated elsewhere as fact. The cumulative effect of these distortions can reshape public understanding in ways that are difficult to reverse. Questioning remains a vital component of democratic discourse. Healthy societies depend on the ability to ask difficult questions, challenge official accounts, and demand accountability. However, effective questioning also requires clarity about what is known, what is unknown, and what remains under formal review. Without that clarity, discourse risks drifting into confusion rather than insight. The distinction between inquiry and inference must be maintained if public debate is to remain constructive. As the case continues, it is important to recognize where definitive answers are most likely to emerge. While online discussions and media commentary can shape perceptions, the most consequential developments will occur within the legal process itself. Court proceedings operate under rules designed to evaluate evidence systematically, test claims through cross-examination, and establish findings based on standards of proof. This process is often slow, and its pace can feel frustrating to those seeking immediate resolution. Yet its deliberate nature is precisely what lends its conclusions credibility. Until those proceedings advance further, the story remains incomplete. There are gaps that cannot yet be filled responsibly, and questions that do not yet have verifiable answers. In this interim period, public reaction plays a powerful role. The tone of discussion, whether measured or speculative, can influence how the case is perceived long before any formal outcome is reached. Once perceptions solidify, they can persist even in the face of new information, making early framing especially significant. Observing how reactions shape understanding reveals much about contemporary media culture. Measured responses tend to slow the conversation, encouraging reflection and patience. Speculative responses accelerate it, generating engagement and urgency. Both dynamics are present here, and both have consequences. Rapid speculation can draw attention and keep a story visible, but it can also blur distinctions and intensify emotions. Measured restraint can preserve accuracy and empathy, but it may struggle to compete for attention in crowded information spaces. In times of uncertainty, responsible storytelling requires discipline. This discipline involves resisting the urge to overinterpret limited information and acknowledging the limits of what can be responsibly said. It also requires humility, a recognition that no single perspective has access to the full picture while investigations are ongoing. Perhaps most importantly, it requires attention to human impact. Behind every case are individuals whose lives are directly affected by how the story is told and retold. When narratives become detached from verified facts, tragedy can be compounded by misunderstanding. Confusion can take on a life of its own, creating secondary harm that persists regardless of eventual outcomes. Responsible storytelling seeks to avoid this by maintaining a careful balance, reporting what is confirmed, noting what remains unresolved, and refraining from filling gaps with conjecture. This balance does not diminish public interest. Rather, it sustains trust over time. The contrast between Owens' skepticism and Erika Kirk's restraint serves as a lens through which to view these broader issues. It shows how different communicative styles can shape a shared conversation in divergent ways. It also highlights the choices facing both commentators and consumers of information. Every retelling, every share, and every interpretation contributes to the evolving narrative surrounding a case. As this story continues to unfold, maintaining that balance between inquiry and caution will remain essential. Verified information will emerge gradually, and interpretations may shift as new details come to light. In the meantime, the way the story is discussed will influence not only public understanding, but also the broader culture of discourse surrounding sensitive and unresolved events. Ultimately, this moment is less about choosing sides between skepticism and deliberation, and more about recognizing the value of both when applied responsibly. Questioning should be grounded in facts, and restraint should not preclude accountability. When these principles coexist, public discourse is better equipped to handle uncertainty without amplifying confusion. As the case moves forward, careful attention to language, context, and impact will continue to matter. The story is still being written, not just in courtrooms, but in the collective conversation that surrounds it. Staying grounded in verified facts while acknowledging what remains unknown helps ensure that understanding evolves alongside evidence, rather than racing ahead of it. And if thoughtful, careful reporting matters to you, consider subscribing to stay informed as verified information continues to emerge.